Well, thank you. That was brief. Any questions, please? Okay, please.
You spoke mainly about ballistic missile defense. What about the ballistic attack side? Are they also involved in building an arsenal of ballistic missile?
Please.
Paul Schultz again. I'd like to ask a difficult question, which doesn't come naturally to me. As a former defense official of a Western country in a friendly country concerned like us with Iran, it seems to me that the description of the Iranian capability is a very bad thing, and that's my immediate reaction. But what if one tried to look at this as a future historian of strategic stability, and what you were seeing then looks different? Is there a way in which the kind of invisible set of trajectories over the Gulf is a stabilizing phenomenon? The Iranians know that if they get into a conflict with local Gulfies or Westerners, they will suffer very badly because their facilities are at risk from very many precision weapons, mainly American. And on the other hand, the Western powers and the Gulf countries know that, as you say, there are enormous equities and assets at risk, particularly desalinization plants. The net effect of that, future historians might say, is stabilizing. It means that there is less likelihood of hostilities breaking out by accident or reckless miscalculation. As I say, this is a question that doesn't come naturally to me, but I invite you to look at that possibility. Nor, I think, does it come naturally to others here. But we ought to try.
Any further questions?
Zachary Cross from the French Embassy. About 6 months ago, I think, Ehud Barak wrote a paper about a strategic triangle, and one of the points of his strategic triangle was a BMD system between Israel and the Gulf countries. Would you like to comment?
No further questions?
Okay.
Okay, you are.
Interesting question. Ballistic missile arsenal, and not BMD. Mainly Saudi Arabia. The Saudis have between 30 to 50. Sitting next to me is an expert on that. He can elaborate. The Saudis bought from the Chinese in the late 80s, beginning of the 90s, the CSS-2. These are old Chinese.
They were old when they were both used.
Originally, the payload of these missiles is nuclear, but the Chinese probably made an adoption, and those missiles can't carry nuclear payloads. In last few years, there are rumors, hints, and I would argue evidence of Saudi renewed interest in ballistic missile capabilities. 2 years ago, they opened a command and control center in Riyadh. I don't remember the sheer numbers, the exact numbers of how much it cost, but it's in the billions. Why would they invest so much in multi-billion-dollar command and control if they have these obsolete Chinese missiles? Some American experts suggested that the Saudis again are interested in either Pakistani versions of Chinese missiles or directly Chinese missiles. I don't remember the exact type right now, but not the CSS-2. Remember that when they bought those Chinese missiles many years ago, the U.S. found out later on. They weren't informed. It was tacit. And the administration was outraged later on and forced the Saudis later on to sign the NPT. They didn't want to sign the NPT, and they were forced to do that because of this acquisition. So this is a very, very sensitive and interesting thing to follow on in Saudi Arabia. UAE have another small arsenal it's insignificant. It's not in the quantities, or it's.
And Bahrain also. Bahrain also has they bought the American ATACMS, which is a short-range ballistic missile.
As I said, the expert sits here. Does the BMD effort have a benign effect? I think so. At least the countries, the GCC, think so. All over the years, they adopted a defense posture, never aggressive, and they see it as necessary to defend those countries. For example, Qatar, 99% of the drinking water are from those desalination centers, infrastructures on the Gulf shore. They totally dependent on water desalination. If you hit those targets, then you have a problem. And this is strategic. And I'm not talking about gas on Ras Laffan and Abqaiq and other installations that if you hit them, you have a catastrophe, economic catastrophe, global-wide. Cooperation with Israel. I haven't read this paper. It's interesting. I read an interview with an American general responsible from BMD sharing in the Gulf and the BMD effort in the Gulf. And he was asked exactly on that. And he said what I think. It's easier to integrate and it's easier to cooperate if you have, for example, in Qatar now, they're building the X-band. The same radar that they installed in the Israeli Negev and in Turkey. These combined efforts, U.S. efforts, can help mitigate future scenarios, future threats from Iran, especially from Iran. Officially, I don't think an Israeli or an official from the Gulf will admit that there is such a cooperation. But indeed, there is cooperation between the American bases in those countries, and then you have it's the same result.
Okay. Any further questions?
Thank you.
So we are 10 minutes earlier for the coffee break. I hope the coffee is there, or do we want to?
So we have a break till
Well, we are supposed to continue at 4, so we'll start 3:45 and probably finish earlier if I see that the keynote speaker is already here. We could start earlier. Okay, thank you very much.